Do you think the war you see on TV is somewhere far, far away, that it will not affect you? Well, think again. Suddenly, your internet line or your source of energy, electricity, gas, in other words, your lifeline could be destroyed. How, you ask? By those who go to war or those who go to proxy war. Have you ever wondered about the hidden infrastructure that powers your life? It's all in the ocean, at the bottom of the high seas. Under the waves, there are millions of kilometers of submarine fiber optic cables. In fact, they transmit 99% of international data, literally connecting the world and its economies. And you know what else lies under the sea? Gas and energy pipelines that transport oil and gas to major economies of the world, making undersea infrastructure critical to the global economy. And today, these undersea cables and pipelines are under threat. You heard that right. Not space, not cyber, but undersea warfare is the new threat. Seabeds have become one of the new frontiers in modern warfare, and attacks on these cables and pipelines are already happening, by the way. Let me explain this. Just weeks after Houthis warned that they might attack undersea network cables, the Yemeni group seems to have started the next phase of offensive. After disrupting commercial shipping traffic, the Houthis appear to be holding global communication systems to ransom. Several undersea internet cables have recently been damaged. As is the case with all undersea disruption, establishing what has happened is difficult. Right now, it's not clear just how many cables have been damaged, but internet monitoring firm NetBlocks confirmed that services in Djibouti were disrupted. And similarly, broadband submarine cable system Seacom also reported cable issues. Flat Telecom founder and telecoms entrepreneur Sunil Tagare also said on his social media account that it was confirmed that several cables had been cut. It was not clear where this confirmation came from. Now, cable breaks are normal. It happens all the time. Oftentimes, it's because of a ship or a small fishing boat dragging a hook. But when several reports emerge simultaneously, it does raise questions. And that's our job, you see, to ask questions. It happened months after Houthis warned that they would do this. The Yemeni group had claimed that they have easily accessed maps showing the confluence of undersea communication cables that run past their coastline through the crucial Bab al-Mandab Strait. Now, you should know the strait at its narrowest is just 32 kilometers wide. But the question then emerges, do they have the expertise or the technology to carry out such an operation? We're talking about the Red Sea. The fiber cables there, which carry 17% of the world's internet traffic, lie on the seabed hundreds of meters below the surface, well beyond the reach of divers. It's the high seas. It's international waters. Sure, the US and Russia are both thought to have the naval capabilities to cut them, but it would involve deploying a deep-sea submersible from a mothership and then using giant pair of scissors for severing the cables on the seabed. And if that sounds a bit excessive, that's because it is, even for the US and Russia. So the question that still remains is, can the Houthis do it? And even if they could, they would need an ally, someone who can supply them a submersible and the ability to locate these cables. Yes, the Houthis do have an ally, and that's Iran. So could Iran enable the Houthis to cut the undersea cables? Experts don't think so. They say they have seen nothing in the Iranian order of battle that could touch these cables. Sure, diving is an option, but it's so deep and busy. The threat made by the Houthis on their Telegram channel, in fact, would be hard to carry out. But the Houthis have surprised everyone before. They have also survived nearly 8 years of airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition. And today, despite repeated US-led airstrikes on their missile and drone bases, they are showing no signs of backing down. Which again brings me to the next critical question. where. We are not sure where the cables were damaged since Djibouti reported internet disruptions. Could the cable breaks have happened near the country, or was it in the 100 meters of fast-flowing water beneath a busy shipping lane out in the strait? In that case, all traffic between Asia and Europe would have been disrupted. The point is, cutting cables without being detected out in the strait is more difficult than it looks. It's a task for specially equipped submarine, not a job for the Houthis or even the Iranians. At least that's what the experts say. Still, the fact that cables have been reportedly damaged is reason enough to be cautious. And here I must mention that the sabotage angle is yet to be confirmed, and this is why questions come up. But you see, it's not just internet cables. Like I said, the seabed also houses pipelines. And earlier this week, coincidentally, Denmark ended its investigation into the Nord Stream attacks that took place in September 2022. The multi-billion-dollar Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines that transported Russian gas to Germany under the Baltic Sea were ruptured by a series of blasts in the Swedish and Danish economic zones. It released vast amounts of methane into the air that should have reached people's homes. It was also Russia's primary means of exporting gas directly into Western Europe. But the blasts occurred 7 months after the Ukraine war, which basically triggered a wide range of Western sanctions against Moscow. Now, Denmark has dropped its investigation into the explosions, becoming the second country, by the way, to do so after Sweden closed its own inquiry. And earlier this month, Sweden dropped its investigation into the explosion, saying that it lacked jurisdiction in the case. Only Germany seems to be interested. A German government spokesperson recently said that Berlin is still interested in solving the case. It is widely speculated that the attacks on the Nord Stream pipeline were carried out by Ukraine with the US assistance. Despite no party being officially blamed for the attacks, Russia and other observers have consistently pointed fingers at the US. And this theory gained further traction when, after the explosions, a video of President Joe Biden had surfaced in which he promised to end the Russian gas pipeline. And this only added fuel to Russia's claims that America was involved in the pipeline's sabotage. The lack of any blame on the investigation front has only added to people's suspicion. I mean, Denmark investigated and concluded it was a sabotage, yet they refrained from pointing a finger at any likely culprit. It's the same story with Sweden. And this is why many continue to make the US the culprit. But then again, Western reports also pointed the finger at Russia. Moscow could have done it. Satellite pictures, in fact, show ships sailing there at the time. It could be Ukraine. A yacht was found with traces of explosives on it. It could also be China. They had a ship there that was missing an anchor. You see, there are several suspects. As far as the Red Sea is concerned, it is going to be a challenging task, to say the least, to determine who was responsible for cutting the cables. And the reason being, there are many international warships present in the area scanning their radar with great vigilance. The US Navy carrier is also, by the way, present in the region, keeping an E-2 Hawkeye radar plane up around the clock. Any ship that behaves suspiciously in the area will see action from the US and its allies. And so far, there have been no apparent attempts. And this makes the Bab al-Mandab Strait a different challenge from the Nord Stream. It raises the question of who would be capable of and interested in covert, fully underwater sabotage, whether it is targeting undersea cables or gas pipelines. Experts refer to this type of activity as grey zone activity, which is a new term for sub-military adventurism. But one thing is for sure, we must acknowledge that undersea disruptions pose a very significant threat to our critical undersea infrastructure. It includes electricity, oil, gas, data communication. This risk is increasing, and we need to be prepared to deter, detect, and also respond to these threats, whether they originate in the Baltics, in the Red Sea, or closer home in the Indian Ocean. Countries need to be armed and ready to protect it. A dreaded serial killer awaits execution following a 43-year-long wait on death row. The prison's medical team members gear up to deliver the lethal shot. The moment of truth finally arrives, but there is a twist in the tale. 8 failed attempts are made to administer the lethal injection. 8 failed attempts. But why? Because they are unable to find a vein. You heard that right. So the deadline passes, the execution is halted. What happens next? No, we are not narrating a novel plot or a thriller plot. The bizarre scenes unfolded in America's Idaho. The state has now, in fact, delayed the execution of serial killer Thomas Eugene Creech. This after not 1, not 2, not 5, but like I said, 8 failed attempts at delivering the lethal injection. The 73-year-old serial killer has served one of the longest death row stints in American history, almost 50 long years. And that's not it, by the way. There is one unanswered million-dollar question. What happens next? But first, let's just find out who Thomas Eugene Creech is. The now 73-year-old was imprisoned in 1974. He has been convicted of 5 murders across 3 states. However, he is suspected of at least half a dozen more. And if court filings are to be believed, Creech has himself admitted to killing or having participated in the killing of at least 26 people. If the procedure had worked, he would become just the 4th person to be executed in Idaho since 1976. And it's first in 12 years. Now to the million-dollar question all of us have on our minds, perhaps. What happens next? Well, according to the Idaho Department of Corrections Director, Josh Tiwalt, and I'm quoting him here, Idaho does not have an idea of time frames or next steps at this point. That's right. Ironically, the state seems clueless at this point. Tiwalt went on to say the department will continue to discuss what to do in the quote-unquote days ahead. And making most of the bizarre situation, and quite predictably so, Creech's attorneys have reportedly filed a new motion. They are calling for a stay on the execution immediately after the execution was called off. What's their claim? The badly botched execution proves that the state cannot carry out a humane execution. Now, while it remains unclear what will happen next, other states usually turn to secondary methods when a lethal injection fails, though the legality of those methods varies from state to state. One recent example, in fact, is Alabama. It was a missed vein that prompted the controversial use of nitrogen gas in the state. It was done for the first time in U.S. history last month in January, though there is no law allowing that method in Idaho. However, as of last year, Idaho became one of only 5 states to legalize firing squads as a method of execution. But there's a catch here. Idaho's Department of Corrections does not have the facilities or physical capabilities of carrying out firing squad. So, for perspective, the most recent firing squad execution was in Utah in the year 2010. No other state has carried out a firing squad execution in 50 years. No matter how Thomas Eugene Creech is made to meet his maker, this rather bizarre episode has once again raised questions about what might be considered a quote-unquote humane execution. Curiosity surrounding members of the British royal family is never ending, and the latest member making the headlines is Kate Middleton, the wife of William, the Prince of Wales. Royal watchers, or people who closely watch the royal family's activities, have created a buzz about her whereabouts and disappearance from the public eye over the last 2 months. In fact, a recent announcement from the royal household mentioned that Kate had to undergo an abdominal surgery and is recovering at the family's private cottage in Windsor. This announcement was also made to avoid speculation about whether some events involving the princess would have to be postponed or cancelled. But giving out a generic statement like this only adds to the curiosity, you see. Social media platforms are buzzing with conspiracy theories and a lot of speculation. The belief, including that since the royal family usually does not give out details of health problems, there is something larger and more concerning going on. In fact, a Spanish news channel claims that doctors have put Kate in an induced coma due to post-operative complications. However, a palace source called this claim utter nonsense and denied it completely. In fact, another theory doing the rounds is that since Kate's sister was recently seen on a family trip in the Caribbean, it is unlikely that anything serious has happened to Kate, else Pippa would ideally have been by her sister's side, not soaking up the sun at a beach. And what has also fueled the curiosity is her husband, Prince William's recent absence from the memorial service of King Constantine of Greece, who was known to be quite close to the British royal family and was William's godfather. But Prince William did make up for that by attending the BAFTA Awards, the UK's biggest film awards, of which he is the president, by the way. He attended solo, reaffirming the fact that his wife is recovering from surgery and said she would have attended otherwise, as she loves the BAFTAs. And one does wonder why mere absence from the public eye due to a planned surgery would create such enormous speculation. But this is not unique to Princess Kate. Over the years, various members of the royal family have triggered speculation and controversy. In fact, Kate's mother-in-law, the late Princess Diana, was by far the most closely followed royal member till date. No other member of the royal family could have possibly created more speculation than her. Princess Kate, we assume, will take it in her stride. In fact, palace sources saying that she will be back at public events post-Easter.